Donald Trump, verdict. I've explained to you before that narcissists are prevalent in politics. Politics is a honeypot for our kind. Political power, through governmental power, through military power, enables the assertion of control over millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people, and allows vast amounts of fuel to be obtained. It allows the acquisition of character traits from so many people that the relevant narcissist comes into contact with, and of course, immense residual benefits in terms of facade management, access to networks, access to additional means of control, and of course, wealth. A narcissist finds the appeal of political power irresistible, a platform whereby they are listened to, a platform where they are obeyed, and in certain instances, a case of you obey me or else. What politics provides to a narcissist is such that it caters to the prime aims to a huge degree, and therefore it is no surprise whatsoever to find so many narcissists in politics, and of course those that invariably get into positions of power of becoming the leaders of countries. Donald Trump is one such narcissist, as I've explained elsewhere, so is Joe Biden. But Mr. Trump's current woes provide us with further opportunities to understand more about the way that his narcissism has impacted upon him and other people, and how he responds to these ongoing difficulties. In relation to E. Jean Carroll, as reported by the BBC, jury finds Trump sexually abused writer in New York department store. A jury in a civil case has found former President Donald Trump sexually abused a magazine columnist in a New York department store in the 1990s. Now, pausing there. This was a civil case, so it wasn't beyond reasonable doubt. It was on the balance of probabilities, i.e., the jury found it more likely than not that he behaved in this way. Based on that verdict, and at the moment on the verdict being sound, that means that it was more likely than not that Mr. Trump behaved in this way. That means that he acted with a sense of entitlement towards another person. That individual at the time was either an intimate tertiary source, he didn't know her particularly well, but engaged with her sexually, or an intimate partner, secondary source, that he knew her reasonably well and interacted with her sexually. He showed a lack of accountability for her behaviours, no boundary recognition in sexually assaulting her. That he exhibited an absence of emotional empathy. Continuing with the article, Mr. Trump was found not liable for raping E. Jean Carroll in the dressing room of Bergdorf Goodman. The jury also found Mr. Trump liable for defamation, for calling the writer's accusations a hoax and a lie. Now, of course, the jury has accepted that he did it. His accuser says, "You behaved in this way towards me." He, of course, guided by his narcissism, is going to deny the allegations. He's not going to admit them. Denial being the first line of the twin lines of narcissistic defence, and indeed he goes so far with his denial to say it's a hoax and a lie. A hoax and a lie. Why? Because as seen through his lens of his narcissism, it is to him a hoax and a lie. Donald Trump doesn't think to himself, fuck, I know I did this, but I'll say it's a hoax and a lie. He genuinely believes that he didn't do it, because his form of narcissism revises history to cause him to believe that he hasn't done anything wrong. That's why he so regularly lashes out with fake news, because to him it is fake. Now, in some instances, it's the truth, that there is stuff made up about him, that there are fake accusations thrown in his direction, and it's done repeatedly by those who are trying to derail him, unseat him, dethrone him, call it what you will. But there are other instances where the truth is used and he denies it because it isn't his truth. So in some instances, there are lies that are made up about him, and his narcissism will reject those lies. In other instances, the truth is told about him, but his narcissism will still reject that because they are also seen as lies through the prism of his narcissism. Here, a jury has accepted the evidence of his accuser. Juries can make mistakes, of course, but for the purposes of this discussion, based upon the evidence that they have heard, they have found the case made out against him. And therefore, absent new information, that is deemed to be the truth of what happened between Mr. Trump and the lady concerned, E. Jean Carroll. But in Mr. Trump's world, it isn't. His narcissism continues to deny that it occurred. He can't understand why this jury has reached such a preposterous outcome. The article continues by explaining it's the first time Mr. Trump has been found legally responsible for a sexual assault. The Manhattan jury ordered Mr. Trump to pay her about $5 million in damages. The jury of 6 men and 3 women reached their decision after less than 3 hours of deliberations on Tuesday. Today, the world finally knows the truth, Ms. Carroll said in a written statement following the verdict. This victory is not just for me, but for every woman who has suffered because she was not believed. Mr. Trump's lawyer said the former president plans to appeal against the decision. That, of course, is to nullify the threat to control that he faces as a consequence of this verdict. Because the trial was in civil court rather than criminal, Mr. Trump will not be required to register as a sex offender. The former president, who has denied Ms. Carroll's accusations, nullification of threat to control, did not attend the 2-week civil trial in the Manhattan federal court. That again shows the haughty arrogance of Donald Trump that he doesn't even deign to turn up to the court. Ms. Carroll, 79, held the hands of both her lawyers as the verdict was read in court and smiled as she was awarded damages by the jury. Mr. Trump's lawyer, Joe Tacopina, shook her hand as the trial ended, telling her congratulations and good luck. Roberta Kaplan, a lawyer for the plaintiff, said in a statement, "This is a victory not only for E. Jean Carroll, but for democracy itself and for all survivors everywhere." After the verdict, Mr. Trump, 76, posted on his social media platform, Truth Social, in all capital letters, "I have absolutely no idea who this woman is." Again, he's not lying when he says that, seen through the prism of his narcissism, that is his honest belief. And that's why he rejects the claim. Because his narcissism tells him, you don't know who this person is. She's a liar. It's a hoax. He continued, "This verdict is a disgrace, a continuation of the greatest witch hunt of all time." Again, his paranoia and his victim complex tells him that there are people out to get him. Now, there are people out to get him. There are people who are out to get him using lies, many of his political opponents, and there are people who are out to get him as a consequence of the truth of much of his actions, which are commensurate with the behaviour of an upper lesser type B narcissist. The standard of proof in civil cases is lower than in criminal cases, meaning the jurors were only required to find that it was more likely than not that Mr. Trump assaulted Ms. Carroll. While the jury found Mr. Trump liable for sexual battery and defamation of Ms. Carroll, they did not find Mr. Trump liable of raping her. To do so, the jury would have needed to have been convinced that Mr. Trump had engaged in non-consensual sexual intercourse with Ms. Carroll. The trial saw a tense cross-examination between Ms. Carroll and Mr. Trump's attorneys. Her legal team called 11 witnesses to corroborate her claims that Mr. Trump had assaulted her in the lingerie department of the luxury store in 1995 or 1996. They included 2 women who also say they were sexually assaulted by Mr. Trump decades ago. If, and it's a big if, that is true, that also is demonstrative of a rudimentary form of manipulation, an absence of boundary recognition, an absence of accountability and a sense of entitlement. One woman told jurors that Mr. Trump groped her during a flight in the 1970s. Another woman said that Mr. Trump had forcibly kissed her while she was interviewing him for an article she was writing in 2005. Again, we don't know the full evidence in relation to all of that, but it is pertinent to say that an upper lesser type B narcissist is likely to behave in such a manner. 2 long-time friends of Miss Carroll testified that she told them about the encounter shortly after it occurred. On the stand, Miss Carroll described in graphic detail what she alleges happened in the store and the trauma she says she has endured as a result. "I'm here because Donald Trump raped me. When I wrote about it, he lied and said it didn't happen," she told the court. Mr. Trump called no witnesses and appeared only in a video of a deposition that was played for jurors in which he denied rape. "It's the most ridiculous, disgusting story," Mr. Trump said in the footage. "It's just made up." Ms. Carroll's lawsuit also argued that Mr. Trump had defamed her in an October 2022 post on his social media site in which he called her claims a complete con job and a hoax and a lie. Her legal team argued Mr. Trump had acted as a witness against himself, collateral consequence of an upper lesser, during the deposition when he doubled down on comments he made in a 2005 recording. In the audio, known as the Access Hollywood tape and leaked in 2016, Mr. Trump suggested women let stars do anything to them, sense of entitlement, grandiosity, including grabbing their genitals. That's what he did to Miss Carroll, her lawyer argued. In the recorded video deposition, Mr. Trump at one point confused Miss Carroll for his ex-wife, Marla Maples, which Miss Carroll's lawyers argued undermined his claim that she was not his type. This, if correct, shows the objectification of the narcissist as seeing everybody as an object and not distinguishing between them. Mr. Tacopina sought to cast doubt on Miss Carroll's story, which he called a work of fiction. He questioned why Miss Carroll could not specify the date of the attack, arguing that it stripped Mr. Trump of the chance to provide an alibi. With no date, no month, no year, you can't present an alibi. You can't call witnesses, Mr. Tacopina said. What they want is for you to hate him enough to ignore the facts. Mr. Tacopina also pressed her on why she did not report a crime to police or scream while it occurred. The former Elle magazine columnist was able to bring the civil case against Mr. Trump after New York passed the Adult Survivors Act in 2022. The law allowed a one-year period for victims to file sexual assault lawsuits in the state involving claims that would have normally exceeded statute limitations. Accordingly, a jury has believed her and not him and found against him. This may be correct, it may not, but at the moment, that is the truth as decided by that jury. And it results in a threat to Donald Trump's control as he continues to try to nullify that threat by saying this is a ridiculous outcome and seeking to appeal it, which of course is not a surprise. Many narcissists, when found against them, will repeatedly seek to appeal, fail to make payment, and have to be forced through enforcement to cough up the readies. This again is demonstrative of the behaviour of Donald Trump, if accurate, in terms of the way that an upper lesser type B narcissist would behave without any due regard for the impact upon another human being, groping, sexually assaulting, showing no sense of boundary recognition or emotional empathy. And, of course, in this instance, it has resulted in a civil court case against Donald Trump, which has further threatened his need for control. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.